Hi, I'm Christy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm here with my November reading mid-month wrap-up, so let's get into it. All right, so I recently asked on my October wrap-up which people preferred, like all of my wrap-up in one video, or if you liked it broken up mid-month and then end of month. And I think everyone who did comment said that they liked the mid-month and then end of month, so I am totally cool with that. It actually works out better for me because I usually have a lot of books to talk about since I read so many books, so it's definitely nice to break it up. So for November, so far I have read 22 books, and so we're gonna get into them. So let's just quickly get into these since we have a lot to talk about already. Of course, as always, if you want to see more of my thoughts or my full reviews on any of the books that I read, I do review every book on Goodreads, and you can always get to my Goodreads through the links in the description of all of my videos. I'll also link every book I talk about, so if you want to go back, you missed a book, you missed an author that I mentioned, you can go back and check them all there out as well. I always link all the books that I talk about in the descriptions of all of my videos. So with that out of the way, let's get into the 22 books that I read for November so far. All right, the first book that I read for November is When She's Common by Ruby Dixon. This is part of her Rizdiverse series. I've talked about this series kind of off and on for the last few months because the Rizdiverse series has been getting audiobooks, and so I binge them as the audios come out. I do that with a bunch of Ruby Dixon series, so I've actually read quite a few from her in the last couple months from different series of hers that are getting audiobooks. So this is the recent one. This one is book 12 in the Rizdiverse series, and this one I gave 4 stars to. So this whole series takes place on the Rizda 3 planet, which is a farming planet. There are human women there, and then the heroes are usually the aliens for this series. And so this is one of the full-length books in the series. I feel like the novellas in this series just work better for me because I feel like I get everything out of them that I need, but I do enjoy the full-length ones at the same time. So this one is A Marriage of Convenience, and this one it starts off with the heroine. She lives on Rizda 3, and she has saved up enough money to adopt a cat. And so when she gets there, she ends up getting the hero instead, and he's a very spoiled, kind of like royal pampered guy. He is a cat-like alien, but definitely not a pet. This one I feel like was really fun. It gets very complicated very quickly. They end up having to live together, or he has to live with her. He's kind of like out of money, kind of in hiding, kind of on the run. So he's just very much used to being pampered and spoiled, and he is entitled, and she definitely sets him straight. It's really fun at the beginning that she actually kind of like messes with him and teases him about her house not having water or not having heat and kind of just like things like that to mess with him, which was fun. And so yeah, I liked to hear how the hero is definitely overly spoiled, but he gets put in his place and kind of like learns that he's doing things wrongly. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It's a Marriage of Convenience setup, and I gave it 4 stars. Like, it's Ruby Dixon. I love her books. All right, and then in my October wrap-up, I talked about how October I was just having a hard time with books, a hard time focusing on books as well. And so I kind of was feeling like that at the beginning of November, and I decided to kind of just like switch it up. I wanted to pick up a book that I hadn't seen a lot of people talk about, that wasn't even out yet, so I decided to jump into an arc of Keep Me by Sarah Kate. This one is actually her newest release. It's coming out in December, and I just wanted a book that I wasn't seeing talked about a ton. I didn't know too much about. I just wanted kind of like a fresh slate to get into that I could just be like wrapped up in, instead of like having all these thoughts about the book that while I was reading it because of like other people who've read it or just knowing like where it was gonna go. I just wanted like a brand new, fresh experience, if that makes sense, which I kind of get in those moods a lot. And so yeah, this one is Keep Me by Sarah Kate. It's the first book in her Sinful Manor series, and I really love this one. I gave it 4.5/5 stars. This one I kind of went in with lowered expectations. I just didn't really know what to expect. I had only read the blurb, and I will say the blurb I feel like doesn't describe this book very well. Like, it does, but at the same time I was blown away with the actual book, and like if I had only gone off the blurb, like it wouldn't have sold it to me as well, if that makes sense. So like I liked it more than what the blurb gave. This one is A Marriage of Convenience. We have enemies to lovers setup. We have a grumpy setup. We have age gap. The hero is older. It's set in Scotland. He is a Scottish broody hero. Both the characters in here are broken characters. We get forced proximity because they have to live together for their marriage of convenience, and it's just honestly so good. So in this one, the heroine is in Scotland with her current boyfriend, and she decides to break into this house, or she just kind of like goes in because it's not her fault that the door is open and she could just like walk in. So she does that, and that's when the hero actually meets her for the first time and is like, what are you doing in my house? And so he ends up breaking her cell phone, and she just kind of like leaves and goes back to the US with her boyfriend. But then when she gets back, she ends up breaking up with her boyfriend at the time. And so then it's like a couple weeks, couple months later, where the hero's sister actually flies from Scotland to the US and is like, hey, I know that you recently met my brother and he was kind of like interested in you, and I feel like you stood up to him. So would you be interested in doing this Marriage of Convenience with him, and we'll pay you $10 million. So we kind of find out that this hero had these very like rowdy, sexual, sensual parties that he used to throw at his estate slash his family's manor, and his family doesn't really like what he was doing with the manor. He hasn't left his house in like 6 or 10 years. So they're like, we kind of want to give him a fresh start, better reputation, as well as possibly get the estate back from him. And so they're like, if he's married to you for a year, the house will actually transfer to his wife, and then you can sell it to us, get your $10 million, divorce my brother, and like go on with your life. So that's the plan. The hero doesn't know all the like caveats of their marriage of convenience. He thinks it's only because his family wants to save his reputation. And so it goes from there. And they are both broken characters. The heroine in here has the most awful parents, and I just loved how they found one another, and it was just so good. There were like a little bit of issues I had with the book, and that kind of had to do with more of like the more sexual side of the book and kind of making it into this party house he used to have, and kind of like the BDSM aspects, which, don't get me wrong, I love those in books. I love the Salacious Players Club series by this author. I just didn't feel like this book needed those aspects because it already had so much going on. So that was my issues with it. But anyways, I love this book. 4.5/5 stars. Highly recommend, especially if you love marriage of convenience, broody, broken characters. All right, next up I read a historical fiction. So this is Angels of the Resistance by Noelle Salazar. This was my first read from this author, and I definitely want to read more of her books because I really enjoy her writing. This one in particular, I gave 3.5/4 stars to. I feel like it was strong. It was just not like a favorite historical fiction for me at the same time. This one takes place in the Netherlands in World War II, and we see these two Dutch sisters who are teenagers at the time. These are kind of based on true people who existed in history as well, and it follows them joining the Dutch resistance during World War II. So I feel like the writing in this one was really solid. I just feel like there was something missing for me to like fully connect to the characters. I felt like I was just more reading a story about them instead of like feeling like I was getting to know them and care for them. So I don't know, I've read like better historical fictions recently, but the writing in here was solid. Maybe it was just this book in particular. Still really good, and would recommend this author for sure. So yeah, 3.5/4 stars for this one. All right, so then I jumped into Beacon by Claire Kent. This is the 8th book in her Kindled post-apocalyptic romance series. If you've been around here for a while, you know that I love Claire Kent's post-apocalyptic romance series. I have a whole guide to the series before this book came out, that is. I love the series so much. It has been one of my favorite series in the past 2 years. So this is book 8, and this is a couple that we've been waiting for their story since like the beginning of the series. And so I'm so excited we finally got to it. And so this one I gave 4 stars to. This one I actually had an arc event. I just didn't get to it in time before it came out. So I'm so glad that I finally did get to it. This one is a second chance romance between the hero and the heroine. They have been on again, off again for years, and they're currently off, as well as the hero has kind of gone off the grid. And so he has been kind of living out in the woods, out in the wild, and the heroine is kind of pulled in to try to go find him, track him down, and bring him back to like their little community, their civilization that they have, which I didn't even talk about the series. So basically the series is a post-apocalyptic kind of set in near future Earth where this huge global catastrophe happened. This asteroid hit Earth and it took out the entire continent of Europe, set the entire planet into like global and natural disasters, and just like things are rough. People are living dangerously. It's very much like survival and not a lot of hope. And so now it's like 10 years after the event and people are starting to get back to semi-normalcy, as kind of like more in communities instead of isolated on their own. So I did really enjoy this one. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars, and here I just had some issues with, they very quickly jump back into their kind of like no strings attached relationship, and they both kind of, we circle around the same issues with them of like neither of them knows where the other stands, that the other wants more, and like just get on the same page already. So I felt like it was a lot of like repetitiveness for that, but otherwise it's on the shorter side. I really love this series overall. So yeah, 4 stars. Next up, I jumped into a Halloween novella from Beverly Jenkins. So this one is Holiday Heat, and this is a contemporary, like I said, set around holiday, this like masquerade ball, and this one I gave 3 stars to. So since I've read all of Beverly Jenkins' historical romances, I now am trying to get into her contemporary romances, and this one was a Halloween novella, and I was like, this is the perfect time to read it. And I saw this Halloween novella was recently released or recently published outside of an anthology that it was originally in, and so I decided, you know what, this is the perfect time to get to it. And my library through Hoopla had it, so I was like, this is it, like I'm going in. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. And this one, the heroine is an ATF agent and the hero is a cop, and he's an arson investigator, and they basically meet at this masquerade, masked ball party, Halloween party, and they hit it off. They hook up very quickly into the story, and then they kind of go their separate ways without knowing who one another is. And then a few days later, or maybe the next day actually, they meet again as like their work selves, and so they're working together on a case, and they don't realize who one another is at first. So it kind of goes from there. I felt like this one kind of heavily focused on the crimes happening and the like fire case they're working on, and I wanted a little bit more of the romance between them because I really enjoyed that part. So yeah, it was fine, like it was good, so I gave it 3 stars. All right, and then I got to Finding Haze by Laura Pavlov. This is the 5th and final book in her Magnolia Falls series, which is a small town series. I love this entire series. This one is probably one of my least favorites in the series though, but I still gave it 3.5/4 stars. This one we have a small town, it's Grumpy Sunshine, it's marriage of convenience. We have that found family, which the whole series has. The hero in this one is a firefighter, and the heroine has recently returned back to her hometown. They were childhood friends who had a falling out, which we learn about as the story goes on, and it was kind of one of my issues with the story. But basically now she's back in their hometown because somebody that she was close with in her life ended up leaving her like millions of dollars. And so she's there to kind of learn about what's going on, as well as figure out that there's like a caveat to that, and realizes that she has to get married to inherit all of this money. And so that's kind of where the marriage of convenience goes with her and the hero. I love a marriage of convenience setup. I feel like in contemporary romances, it doesn't always work super well for me. And that was kind of the case with this one. I kind of wanted a little bit more from it, and I had just read the new Sarah Kate one with marriage of convenience that worked for me so well. So this one just kind of didn't live up to a lot of different things, as well as the rest of the books in the series for me. There's a whole like miscommunication of why they had that falling out in the past, and the kind of the way it was handled and the reasoning for it. I've seen it done in a lot of books, and I hate when books kind of follow that path and do that same kind of setup situation, which I'm trying to be vague on purpose because if you haven't read it, then I don't want to like spoil it for you. But yeah, that was just like my issues with the book, was kind of like the handling of why they had their falling out in the past. And then I just kind of wanted a little bit more from both of these characters. I love the found family setup in here. I love seeing all the side characters in here, so I had like very highs and lows with this book because there was moments I loved and then some I just wanted a bit more from. So yeah, not bad by any means, but not one of my favorites in the series. So yeah, 3.5/4 stars. All right, next up I had an ALC audiobook of A Very London Christmas by Sarah Matterson. So this one I ended up giving 3 stars to. It's a holiday novella that's set in the UK. We have a billionaire hero. It's single dad nanny, grumpy sunshine. This author has 2 pen names, so they have Sarah Matterson and then they also have Elodie Hart. I've read their Elodie Hart books, and then this is I think the first Sarah Matterson book I've read from them, possibly. So yeah, this one was okay. Like if I didn't have the audiobook of it, I probably wouldn't have gotten to it. And it was just fine. Like it was very typical holiday novella, single dad nanny, like just all the usual kind of suspects and things happening in the story. I would say the first part of the story I enjoyed more. The second half I wasn't really a fan of, and I didn't really like where it went with kind of the hero's ex situation in the second half of the story. So it was fine. It was okay, 3 stars. Next up was a reread for me. So I am a co-host for the Wallflowers Read along with some other BookTube friends. And so our November book was Scandal in Spring by Lisa Kleypas. So here is the gorgeous pink cover and then the step back as well. This one I've always given 4 stars, and it was a 4-star read for me again. I love the Wallflowers series so much. This is just one of my least favorite in the series, but like it's still 4 stars. It's still good. I still love the Wallflowers overall, but Daisy's story just doesn't live up as much as the other heroines in the series. So this is the 4th and kind of the conclusion of the actual Wallflower series, the main core 4 friends we follow at least. There is a holiday novella that we're going to be getting to in December as well, but for the 4 like core Wallflowers, this is the last book in that series. And so this one is Daisy Bowman's book. She's an American heiress, and she ends up getting an ultimatum from her father at the beginning of the story where he's basically like, you need to get married to somebody of worth or I have picked your husband for you. And so basically her father wants her to marry Matthew Swift, who has been kind of under her father's business thumb for like 10 years. He's kind of like her father's apprentice. And so she's like, ew, no way. Like I don't want to marry some guy that you love, because she doesn't have a great relationship with her parents. And also like I've met that guy in the past. He's not really my type. Like that's not what I dream of for myself, because she's very much like a romantic. And so it kind of starts off that way, but then she ends up meeting Matthew Swift. It's been 10 years since she was first introduced to him, and he has definitely changed, and finds out that he has been like secretly pining for her. And so I really do love them together. There were just moments of this that didn't really work for me, kind of more in the second half of the story. So yeah, solid overall. The Wallflower series is just so good, especially if you're getting into historical romances. 4 stars for me. Next up, I had an ALC of Axes and O's by Kayla Grouse. So the audiobook for this one is coming out this month. I think it comes out around the time that this video is going out. So this book actually released last month, and then the audiobook is coming out this month. And so like I said, I had an audio ALC of it. And so this one I ended up giving 4 stars to. This one is very much like wintry, snowed in, fun times. This one is an MMF, and we follow a married couple. They're lumberjacks, and they are just kind of like wanting to introduce a third to the relationship. They tried to do it in the past. It didn't really work out. They have some like hurt kind of feelings or hurt hearts about that. And so then the other hero in this, he actually ends up getting kind of snowed in, and the couple finds him stuck in his car. And so they invite him in to their place with them to warm up and kind of all of those things. And it kind of goes from there. He has like a bisexual awakening, and it's just so good. Like I love seeing all of them find one another. This author just works for me. I love the way that she blends like spicy romances along with like emotional depth and like emotional elements to the characters as well. So I liked seeing these 3 just kind of like find each other. Like it was just so fun. So yeah, 4 stars for this one. It's a really fun, like spicy, snowed in romance. Next up, I read Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto, and this one I gave 3 stars to. So this one, I feel like this author and me just don't connect. I don't really connect with her writing. I had read her first like debut or like debut traditionally published book, Forget Me Not, last year when it came out. That one was 3 stars for me as well. I felt like it was just very mid and didn't deliver for me. And so I didn't plan on reading any more from her, but then I do always like to give authors like a second chance because there's plenty of authors that I've read another book from them and love it, even if I didn't like the first one. So I wasn't planning to get to this one, but then I saw people who were loving it and some people who like didn't love Forget Me Not liked this one. So I decided, you know what, like I'll put a Libby Holden from my library and see how it goes. And so I did. I gave her another chance and I just don't think she's the writer for me, which is totally fine. So yeah, I gave this one 3 stars. It just didn't work for me. I didn't connect to her writing. I know plenty of friends who love her books, and so I'm so glad that it works for other people, just not the author for me. All right, so then I switched it up and jumped back into Ruby Dixon's Risdiverse series. So this is When She's Shy. This is another book in the Risdiverse series that recently got an audiobook. This one in particular is a novella, which like I said, I love the novellas in the series. So this one I gave 4 stars to. This one's actually a sapphic romance with a human heroine and then an alien heroine as well. And I just had such a fun time with this one. The human heroine is the one who's shy, and the alien heroine is a delivery kind of food vendor who comes to the planet Rizda to drop off kind of like weekly supply drops. And so they always see one another, and the human heroine is just like too shy to make a move. But then something happens and the alien heroine has to step in and kind of like rescue her, and it kind of goes from there. It was just so cute and fun. I honestly could have read more from this couple. I know I said I like the novellas better in the series, but this one was the case where I wanted like a little bit more. So it was fun. 4 stars. Next up, I had an ALC of Broken Harbor by Catherine Cowles. This is the 3rd book in the Sparrow Falls series. I love this author and the series so much. I gave this one 5 stars. This is small town romantic suspense. We have a single mom baker heroine. We have a hockey hero. He's also the coach of her son's hockey team. We have forced proximity, found family, kind of like hurt, comfort, caretaking. This one is just so good. In this one, the heroine is a baker in town and she has a 7-year-old son. At the beginning of the story, she's dropping off her son at hockey camp, and when she gets there, she ends up having a flat tire in the parking lot, and so that is when she has her little like meet cute moment with the hero. He offers to help and she's like, no, I got this on my own. So he's kind of like amused and interested in her, but they go their separate ways, and then they end up meeting again inside the hockey arena because he is one of the coaches for her son's hockey camp. He's also like her son's hockey idol, and it was just so fun. I loved all the hockey time in here. I loved the hero, like how much he wants to be a part of the heroine and her son's life. Like he ends up reading mommy blogs to figure out the best car seat to have in his car to take her son to hockey camp. He has this huge mansion that he bought, and he actually invites the heroine and her son to live with him, and he finds out about their living arrangements, and it's just so swoony. It's so good. I love Catherine Cowles' writing so much. There is some romantic suspense elements in here. The heroine also has kind of like a hard time with her ex and kind of like some bad guys that he's involved with, and it's just so good. I love this series so much. Definitely pick this one out. It comes out on November 19th. All right, so next up I just had a row of really good books. So then I read Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the 3rd book in her Rebel Blue Ranch series, and this one I really loved. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like this series just gets better and better, and I just really enjoy them. They're cowboy, kind of like Western vibes. This one in particular is Hate to Love, Age Gap, Grumpy Sunshine, Best Friend's Brother, Single Dad Nanny, and I just really enjoyed this one. The characters in this one we met in the 1st book in the series because the hero of this one, his sister, is the heroine of book 1, and the heroine of this book is best friends with that heroine as well. So like the best friend's brother set up for this book. So at the beginning of the story, we see that the heroine is losing her job. Her boss has decided to kind of retire and step away from her clothing store and go be closer to family, and so the heroine's kind of heartbroken over that because she loved her boss, loved her workplace, and so she's just kind of feeling down when she gets a call from her best friend and is like, hey, we need help. Like my niece needs to get picking up from a soccer practice, I want to say, and like you're the only one in town. Could you go help us out and pick her up? And so the heroine was like, of course, because she's been a part of that little girl's life, but the hero is the dad of said girl. And so him and the heroine don't get along, which we see why as the story goes on, and I really liked seeing that kind of development. So he gets there and realizes that she's the one with his daughter. So he's taken aback and very grumpy about it at first, but then later on, I think like the next day or something, his family is like, hey, you're like overworked, you're dropping the ball on things, like you need to take a break, you need help, like you should offer the heroine to be your nanny. Like it would work out perfectly. She gets along with the family, she knows your daughter, like she's been there from her birth, just like let her help you out. And so it quickly goes from there. It's just so good. I just really love this author's writing. It really works for me. So yeah, 4 stars for this one. All right, so then I got to The Nightmare Before Christmas by Sarah Rosh. This one I had so much fun with. I went in with low expectations and I loved it so much. much. I gave it 4.5 stars. Highly recommend you check this one out this holiday season. It was so stinking cute. This one is one that was so much fun. Basically, this is kind of a setup of, it's described as The Nightmare Before Christmas meets Red, White, and Royal Blue. And I had some like mixed thoughts about that because I didn't love Red, White, and Royal Blue, the book, but I love Nightmare Before Christmas. So I decided to give it a go anyways. And I had an audio ALC of it. And like I said, it just kind of like blew me away and I loved it so much. It's so cute. It's set kind of like feels very modern and contemporary, but kind of has like a fantastical element to it because basically in here, all of the holidays are royal courts. So we have like a Halloween prince, we have a Christmas prince, we have the Easter princess, and there's this whole like kind of court royal politics happening as well, which was a lot of fun. And so this one, like I said, it's an MM romance where basically the hero Cole, he is the Christmas prince, he's the heir to being Santa, and he always just kind of like makes mistakes. He's a PR nightmare. And so his father, who is Santa, decides to invite him home for the holidays. And so when Cole gets there, he realizes that it's kind of like an ambush, and his father kind of planned this alliance between the Easter court. And so he wants his son, the Christmas prince, to marry the Easter princess. And they're actually best friends, but they don't have any romantic feelings towards one another. And so then things get complicated as well because then the Halloween court finds out that Christmas and Easter are trying to make this alliance, and Christmas already has taken over so many winter holidays. And so they're like, no, we need to throw our hat in the ring as well. So they send the Halloween prince to court the Easter princess as well. And so it's going to be kind of like a little competition thing. But then instead, the Christmas prince and Halloween prince fall for each other. And it's just so stinking good. I love this one so much. Highly recommend you pick it up this holiday season. It covers a lot of different holidays and it's just so fun. And I can't wait for the next one in the series because I already saw like a glimpse of that one and I'm so excited. So yeah, 4.5 stars for this one. It's so much fun. All right, so then I jumped back into historical fiction and I decided to pick up Take My Hand by Dolene Perkins Valdez, and this one was so stinking good. I gave this one 5 stars. I sobbed during this book, cried multiple times. It's just so good, such a heavy hitter. I loved it so much. This is historical fiction, but it's based around true events and true people, and it took place in Montgomery, Alabama in the 1970s. Basically in here, we're following a Black nurse who lives and works in post-segregation Alabama. Like I said, it takes place in Montgomery in 1973. So we're following her life and her work as a nurse at a family planning clinic. Basically, she ends up blowing the whistle on this like terrible injustice that's happening to her patients. So you get pulled right into the story from the start where the heroine is on her kind of like first case. She gets her first patients and they are these 11 and 13-year-old sisters, and she is tasked with giving them a birth control shot. And so it kind of starts to make her question why they're getting this, what's going on, and it kind of goes into the story from there. This story just touches on so much like institutional classism and racism, reproductive injustice, kind of the US government's overreach, horrifying overreach that has happened in history. Very heavily deals with women's reproductive rights, forced sterilizations, just like a horrible part about history, about our country. And this story, it was just so good. I feel like this author's writing immediately pulled me in. This was the first book that I have read from them, and I totally want to read more because their writing was just so good. Like the story is definitely heavy hitting, but their writing was amazing. I was just so impressed with this book. And like I said, I've already grabbed a couple other books from this author, from Libby as well, that I can't wait to get to. Really love this book. Highly recommend reading it. All right, and then next up, I finally got to Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. I love this cover and this really pretty yellow edges on this one. This is the follow-up book to The House on the Cerulean Sea. I love TJ Klune's writing, and I love this series and these characters so stinking much. I do think this book was maybe a little bit too long, or it took me a little bit to get into it, but then once I was in again, I loved it so much. I gave it 4 stars. I also realized when I was reading this book, I did the audiobook this time, and I hadn't done the audiobook for The House on the Cerulean Sea, and so I kind of already had an idea in my own mind from reading The House on the Cerulean Sea of how I thought certain characters talked and were, and so I was a little taken aback by doing the audio this time because certain characters' voices were like totally different than I was imagining in my mind, so that kind of took me back. I don't know if that affected my reading experience as well, but then once I was into it, like the halfway point on, it was just so stinking good. It had me laughing, it had me swooning. Like these characters are just so like tender-hearted and sweet, and I love this series with my whole heart. So yeah, definitely enjoyed this one. It's just so good. Like highly recommend TJ Klune's books. All right, and then next up, I ended up binging the Under the Mistletoe Holiday Novella Collection that was released by 5 different romance authors. So they have standalone novellas in the series. They're on Kindle Unlimited. They come with the read and listen feature. I did like a whole recap, quick reviews on the whole series, which I have a video up for that as well from this weekend. So definitely go check out there as well. But I'm just gonna quickly run through the 5 books that I read, and they're all holiday novellas. So first up, we have Merriment and Mayhem by Alexandria Bellefleur. I gave this one 4 stars. Starts off with like a holiday baking disaster gone wrong, where the heroine needs help, and then the fireman hero shows up, and so that's their romance. 4 stars for that one. All by Myself by Olivia Dade. I gave this one 2 stars too. I didn't love this one. It felt so strange and I didn't get it. They're supposed to be like mutual pining. There's like this whole miscommunication situation. They're academic co-workers. I just didn't connect with this one at all. Then we have Merry Ever After by Tessa Bailey. This one I gave 2.5/3 stars. It's very Tessa Bailey-like. So it's very unhinged, very much small, tiny heroine, big grumpy hero. She's a single mom. He's a farmer. He needs clothes to fit him. She decides to make him clothes and he wants everything with her. Very steamy, very insta-love, classic Tessa Bailey. So 2.5/3 stars. Then Only Santa's in the Building by Alexis Daria. This was one of my favorites in the series. 4 stars for this one. It was so much fun. Basically in here we have mutual pining and the 2 characters live in the same building and they have like a Santa themed party and that's when they kind of sparks fly there. So good. And then the last one in the series is Cruel Winter with You by Ali Hazelwood. Another of my favorites in the series. I gave this one 4 stars. This is a Snowden situation. It is best friends, younger brother, the hero's a billionaire, and it is their romance. He's been pining and into her for years. So good. So that is that Under the Mistletoe series. They're just like a fun holiday novella time. Like you can finish all of them in one sitting. All right, and then the last one that I just finished is December Midnights by Victoria Wilder. I had an ALC of this one. This book actually came out I think a couple years ago, but the audiobook just is recently getting released. And so this one I gave 3.5/4 stars to. This one takes place in Maine and it's very much like small town. Also has a little bit of like magicalness to it. It was kind of described as like having practical magic vibes and I can totally see that. It also has kind of like Grumpy Sunshine vibes. It has that magical soulmates element to it. And it takes place at this inn and it is a novella, so it's very short, very much like holiday, kind of like magic to it. So yeah, I enjoyed this one, 3.5/4 stars. So that's my November mid-month wrap up, all 22 books I've read so far for this month. I'm so excited to read even more holiday romances that come out this month and just like excited for all of the end of the year reading because so many good books are coming out that I can't wait to get to. Let me know in the comments if you read any of the books that I just talked about. I would love to know. If you're gonna pick any of these up, I would love to hear that as well. If you had any favorite reads for November so far, let me know that too. If you'd rather leave me an emoji in the comments today to let me know that you watched this video, leave me a yellow heart. This is yellow. I have yellow on my shirt, so do that. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!